Hello and welcome. This is our second podcast. My name is William Diedrich. We have Mike Limauro and John Bailey. We are the authors of the book, The Practice of Letting Go. This is our second podcast. And our topic today is letting go of bad habits and limitations. So let's just jump right in. What do you guys think?
I have a lot to say, especially this time of year, because I go through this myself this time of year, always reviewing, right, my limiting beliefs and what I can let go of. For me, it starts with conscious awareness, right? It's hard to change, maybe impossible to change something that I'm not aware of. And so being consciously aware of my limiting beliefs, my bad habits, has to be the starting point. And and then the next ingredient for me is self-honesty. So I have to be honest about how these habits, how these beliefs may be interfering with my ability to live my best life. Starts there for me.
Good start. What do you think,
I've
John?
given some thought. I've given some thought to this, and hopefully, I'm not breaking up. You guys are breaking up a little bit on my end, but if I understand where we're heading, this is where I kind of begin in this whole realm. Is first of all, as a man thinketh, so is he, and I've really given thought to why people think the way they think. That tends to be where I begin investigations. And the best part for me to analyze was myself. And it really comes down for me between the true self and the false self. The true self I look at as this divinely God created being, gifted in certain ways with capabilities of living in those gifts, finding fulfillment and great purpose. Yet other things try to create this false self. It could be negative input from parents or from friends or just society in general. It could be some failures that happen and now you feel incompetent. Or it could be in the other direction where you become arrogant. Your ego is quite um, high on itself and wants to be fed. And the false self takes a lot of energy to maintain. And so, if out of that false self, limiting thoughts start to happen, then it can become consuming. And when I set a goal and I don't get it, it's like, there's just confirmation that I'm a failure, or that's confirmation that I'm not competent to do these things. And that becomes ingrained. And it's like a seed being planted. Once that seed gets the dirt covering it, then it's going to grow and take root. And it becomes very hard to dislodge at that point. So this particular topic hit home really close for me.
Love that, John. I don't remember the author's name, but the title of the book was The Ant and the Elephant. And the main point that he was making is that, again, it's the conscious choice, right? Whether you think of that in terms of higher self, egoic self, but having that conscious awareness of what's going on, but also understanding that there's a lot of subconscious programming that, it's almost like we're on autopilot as we go through the day, whether it's churning negative thoughts, the same old stories over and over again, I'm not good enough. Again, that's where if you listen to that track playing in your head, then you increase your conscious awareness of how you're talking to yourself. But even then, subconscious means it's outside of your awareness. And so having this understanding that if you have a conscious awareness, things have finally bubbled up, that's where you need to start. And over time, as you let go of limiting beliefs and bad habits, other limiting beliefs and other bad habits will come. But I like to think of it as bubbling up into your conscious awareness, and you can deal with them then. But for now, I think everybody if they just listen to the voice in their head, would quickly be able to identify something that they're telling themselves that isn't healthy. And then it's about, okay, how can I take this ant of a conscious mind and retrain the elephant of the subconscious mind? And yet, if you think about it, I love the analogy, because young children in India can train an elephant, an Asian elephant, but they do it very gradually, very slowly. They have a system that works. Same thing with changing a limiting belief, an unhealthy belief to a healthy one, a bad habit to a healthier one. It takes, yes, conscious awareness and self-honesty, but it also takes patience, a willingness to create the desire to change, put the energy, as you say, the conscious energy into moving in that direction. And also having this combination of will power and won't power, meaning I will start talking to myself in healthier ways, and I'll resist that negative track that continues to want to play in my mind. Easy
Good
to say,
points.
hard to do. Right?
Go ahead, John.
I think that's said, Mike. I like when the Apostle Paul, he was talking in one of the Corinthian letters, about taking every thought captive and being able to bring down strongholds. And what I like to do with people when they express something like, I can't do this, or it could be just, I feel, I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with a lady the other day at work. And in the process of that conversation, she referred to herself as being chunky. And I said, "Oh no, that's totally wrong." I said, "You're not chunky. Uh, you're a very attractive, healthy woman." And she says, "Well, when I was young, I was made fun of a lot, and my grandmother always made fun of how fat I was." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, do you believe that's true? Do you believe that that's the way God wants you to feel about yourself?" And as soon as you ask the question, it just makes common sense to say, well, no, well, then don't refer to yourself that way.
Mm.
Let's begin to change that, because I said, you're a blessing to everyone around here. You work hard, you carry more than your weight on the job around here. You are just such a great person. So let's work on keeping that in the forefront of your mind. And I'm adding some words here. That's not the specific words of the conversation, but the essence was, this is the direction we go now, and you're thinking. And she just looked at me and said, "Thank you. I appreciate that. You're a blessing too." And then she left for the day. That, I think, is when we call out those thoughts, basically, like Mike's saying, call them out and hold them up and say, is that really an honest assessment? Is that really true? And even if the person says, yes, I feel, then what makes you feel that that's that? And start peeling back the layers of the onion and get down to the root of this, where we can eradicate it, because it shouldn't be in your thoughts. You're made uniquely beautiful and capable, and maybe you just haven't figured out quite your role in everything, but I can help you do that as well. Let's have that conversation. Um, and it took me most of my life to get to that point.
Yeah.
But it is such a liberating thing when you finally stop looking at yourself in derogatory ways or degrading ways, and build yourself up with the things that truly are a fact about you. And um, I hate to see people so, and I think that's another aspect of this, is that these limiting thoughts, these habits, uh, they bind you. They bind your mind, they bind your heart, and that's why you never really seem to break out of them. You have to call them out and get those things addressed. I remember I went through, it was called Cleansing Stream. It was from another denomination in church, but a friend invited me. And I remember at one point there was two men who were just, they just kind of came around me, put their hands on my shoulders and surrounded me and started praying that, and as they said, that these chains would be broken. And they actually would with their hands on my shoulders act as though they were breaking a chain. And the image of that is exactly what I think we hope people will achieve in letting go, is that these chains that have anchored them and bound them will be broken so that they might be free to be all or become all that they were purposed and meant to be.
Sounds like a powerful process you went through.
It was.
Yeah. Um, in my coaching, I'm finding that people have all these limitations, but then I ask them, "What do you want?" They don't know. They're so focused on a conflict with this person or with that person or what's not going right that they haven't taken the time to think about, well, what do I want? What's my intention here? And so I ask them to come up with that. And it takes a while sometimes for them. They can't just immediately tell me, yeah, I want this. And so then I'll say, well, how do you want to feel? If you're at work, how do you want to feel? Or in your family? What kind of day do you want to have? Do you want to feel joy during your day or a sense of achievement? What is it that you want? And then when they finally come up with it, then I'll say, okay, you think this, does that help you feel joy or success? You have this thought, you have this resentment toward this other person. And this is one I'm working with right now. And you want to make sure that he knows that he's wrong and you're right. How does that help you feel great during the day? Does it help you feel good? How do you feel when you're thinking that way? So people need a benchmark. Like, this is who I want to be, how I want to feel. And so my current thinking and feeling, is that helping me do that? Or is it in the way? Is it keeping me where I've been, which is this state of misery or unhappiness or whatever it might be?
You both bring up a great point. Whether it's, a program that you're in, whether it's a pastor at your church, whether it's a coach, a therapist, whatever, best friend, somebody that has your back, somebody that wants what's best for you, getting that feedback, getting that coaching, getting that support, letting people see themselves through your eyes or through these third parties' eyes can make all the difference in the world. Because people they struggle. The program of negativity is so hard. This negativity bias that we all have as human beings, it's so ingrained. And sometimes we just need that helping hand to get us to open our eyes just a little bit and see the truth, right? I love, John, when you quote the Bible, right? And Jesus said, know the truth and the truth will set you free. So when you look in the mirror, you're not seeing a truthful reflection because you have all of these negative lenses through which you're looking, whether it's how my grandmother felt about me or talked about me. You got the grandmother lens on. And so it's this process of letting go. To me, it's almost like removing those one lens at a time. So can I just focus on what my grandmother said about me isn't really true. I don't know why she said what she said. That's I love this line, what other people think of me is none of my business.
Mhm.
Such an easy way of letting go of trying to live up or down to people's expectations for you. But I think that all three of us have are blessed with lives that allow us to engage with people and be that mirror, be that support. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Just love the opportunity to be able to help people see themselves as who they are, which is beautiful. They just need to see more clearly.
There's a point when I'm coaching someone, I like to ask what sometimes called the magic question, where I'd say, all right, you're going to go to bed tonight and you're going to wake up tomorrow. If everything was just the way you wanted it about your life, about yourself, about the world around you, what would it look like? What would that be? There's no restriction on you. It's just something magic happens tonight and everything is just the way you want it. What would it look like? And then once they explain that or throw a few things out, then we can start looking at, all right, what steps would you take to get to that point, to make that happen? And uh, and it's really hard for some people. At one point, one of my lowest points, I was asked, make a list of 10 positive things about yourself. And I honestly couldn't write anything down. I was that down on myself that I thought, well, there's nothing positive about me. And that was totally ignoring the input, the positive input that I was receiving from people. I had convinced myself that that was not true. And it was almost like the Saturday Night Live character. I can't remember his name, Smalley, I think, where he looks in the mirror and he goes, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. You know, and I have to, I thought, well, that's always silly to say what positive things about myself. But now I am freely, if you wanted to hear something positive about me, I will tell you. So, uh, and it's not in an arrogant sort of way. It is because humility is what allows this to flow from me. But I do recognize that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And that's true of every person. And that's, when God looked at Jeremiah in the very first chapter, and he said, when you were still in the womb, I consecrated you. I set you apart for my task that you would do this for me. And um, and I think that's true of all of us, that there is in each of us this wonderful design. And of course I give God credit, but by whatever means you think it happened, you have a uniqueness that can only be found in this entire world, in this period, I believe, in you. There's people that may have similar talents and abilities, but they're not packaged in your temperament, in your personality, and in your context. And so they get displayed very uniquely. And so that's why I like meeting new people, because I feel like I'm meeting someone and coming in contact with something with them that I cannot find anywhere else in the world in that moment. And that's why they're divine appointments for me. And when there was a fellow the other day, everybody that he talked to said, hi, neighbor. Hey, there's my neighbor. Hey, neighbor. Everybody was neighbor came in. I said, you live by all these people? He goes, well, don't you remember what Jesus said? He said, everybody's your neighbor. I'm like, well, you're living it, man. That is awesome. And so it's just when you can get that perspective changed and turned, oh man, then people, it's like they hit the boosters. It just jettisons them into this powerful way of living that they've never known before, and they won't want to go back. They just won't want to go back there.
John, I know this is maybe an unfair question, but can you think of something that helped you flip that switch from not being able to say anything good about you to now clearly you've done a total 180?
For me, it was largely a divine work, and surrounding myself with the right people. I may have mentioned this before at some point, but there was a guy who was on that plane that crashed in the Hudson. And when they said, we're going, to assume kind of the crash position, three things went through his mind. He said, first of all, I'm going to become the best father I could ever become. If I survive this, I will be the best. And second, I will not hang around negative people. And third, I'll never leave good wine unopened. but but I thought about that negative people thing, and so I really sought out people that reinforce the positive. Not that they were complimenting me all the time, but their very nature was positive in looking how they looked at life and how they faced things. The other thing is that I've come to realize that we often pray as though, whatever higher form, for me, Adonai, God, it's as, we almost approach it as if he's out there somewhere and we have to somehow reel him in or bring him in close. But Jesus said, when you pray, he said, go into your closet and shut the door. That's not literally a closet. Let's go into yourself, go into your heart and shut the door. And he says, I will meet you there. And so I had to start going in and saying, what I'm saying about myself contradicts everything I'm trying to tell and encourage other people with. And that's silly. And why would anyone believe me that they should feel better about themselves if I'm publicly self-degradating, making those comments about me? So I had to change that whole mode. And it's amazing how, just again, as the man thinks, so is he. When I changed that and started consistently calling him out, I do a thing now in my own head where a thought will pass through my head and I'll say, not of God. I know that did not come from the divine. That came from somewhere else. And I it's kept me from smarting off with my wife or saying snarky things. It's kept me from saying really dumb things to people that could have raised the hackles on some. It's a very protective way of living too. So I I tend to stay in the positive. I don't watch news. I don't anything that's just going to be negative and negative. I don't want to be around it. I'm not going to feed my brain that kind of information. And so I think to answer your question, Mike, it wasn't one thing. It was making the cumulative effect of multiple things that I intentionally and purposefully changed around me and within me. And I am stronger now than I have ever been. I hate that I wasted all those years.
Wow, that's a negative thought. You're gonna let that one go too. That's
That's
not,
right.
Yeah,
not like that.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad you said what you said. I just recently had a conversation with someone who miraculously, after many decades of struggling with addiction, uh, finally, for the first time late in life, voluntarily submitted himself into rehab. And he's been sober for over a year now. And
oh,
just
wonderful.
he's got his life back, his health, his everything, his mind is clear. But and he's got this very charismatic personality. So when he's in the rehab and he's older, a lot of the younger ones gravitate to him. And he was just sharing with me why the success rate is so low. It's because in a protected environment like he was in, those negative associations aren't there. So it's not just the environment in here, it's the environment out here too, whether it's at work or at home. And these young adults go back into a situation where they feel they have no control over that, reinforces the old programming. And it's like, how do you do that? And so you have to add to this list having the courage to change your inner environment and your outer environment.
Yeah,
So I love the techniques that you use where you can identify what you want. One of the best things that I recommend people is find other people that want the same thing and start hanging out with them.
Yeah.
sure.
So even if you can't change your home environment or your work environment right now, you can start to work toward changing those environments. But this is where I will add healthier associations and I will begin to resist, right? I will not continue to hang out with these negative associations. I think that's a big key to the success of
That's
the.
huge.
Yep.
Something that you kind of flagged in my closing comments a moment ago, that feeling bad that I wasted so many years to get here. I really don't feel they're wasted. That was a flippant statement. Uh, and this is what I would say to your friend, is that the years that we lived prior to this moment, this moment in time, we are representing the accumulation of every decision we made, good or bad, are represented in how we're living in this moment. And all of that works to form us that if this is the moment where true freedom comes into my life, then it means that all of that that's happened has developed me to a point where now this is going to be even more so powerful and impactful and influential, for that matter, because of what I have come through to get here. And now your friend will be able to help people like he's never helped before. And
It's good.
so nothing is a waste unless we disregard it and see its role in who we have become.
Well said.
That's an important point. Yeah. The question you asked, John, it's about how do you learn to love yourself? Because if you don't, all the things we're talking, the negative habits, the limitations, those are normal. So you have to, if you don't already love yourself, or even if you do, you can probably love yourself more. And the key for that, for me, was acceptance. That however I feel in this moment, I accept it. If I'm angry, if I'm hurt, if I'm sad, if I'm resentful, I accept it. That doesn't mean I'm going to camp out there. It just means that I accept how I'm feeling and who I'm being right now. I just accept it. And I also know who I want to be and where I want to go and what my intention is, but I'm here right now. It's like if I'm driving to California, I don't get all upset if I'm still in Iowa or Nebraska. I say, you know what? I'm on my way. And so
Yeah.
I may have some bad habits. I do have habits that I still need to work on. If I'm in the midst of those or some negative thoughts and they're not what I want, I don't need to get upset with myself because I'm on my way to the West Coast. It's just part of the journey. So then it's just accepting what is, or that book with Byron Katie, Loving What Is, that nothing is, or going with what you said about the past, nothing is wrong or bad necessarily. Accept where you are, accept what you're feeling, and then move on from there. Don't stay there because if you resist it, then it just gets stronger. If I start criticizing myself for my negative thoughts, I've doubled my work
And,
because I got to deal with the negative thoughts and my judgment of myself. So stop judging. And then for
and
me, that extends because once I stop judging myself for how I feel and what I think, then the next step is I really need to stop judging other people for that too and let them be who they are. And if they're having a moment of anger or hurt or upset, or if they live there even, to accept them as they are and to do what I need to do. So that self acceptance to me is self love. And acceptance means accepting who you are being in this moment, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and then taking the next step toward who you want to be and where you want to go, whatever your intention might be. But of course, as I said earlier, you need to know what you want, what your intention is. Otherwise, you can say, I want to get rid of these bad habits, but there's no benchmark. Uh, like you talked about people visioning, John. That vision is a benchmark. It's their goal, their intention, and so they can look at their thoughts and say, "Is this going to get me there?" So we're about out of time here. We got a few more minutes. So if we could each say a couple of things. Mike, you have some things to add?
I think we've all made some really cogent points. I always think about this idea of putting a stake in the ground. Again, you can't just let go of a limitation and a bad habit without reaching for something new, right? So it's always this idea of letting go of this is easier if I'm reaching for this. I need an
Mm-hmm.
empty hand. If I want to grab that, I need to empty my hand first.
I like that. I like that vision. Yeah.
I think that I would close in encouraging someone that this is not something that you need to do alone. I really encourage um, people to have someone to sojourn with, because you'll stumble along the way. There'll be those times, and you can't let those moments drag you back to where you were. You need someone that comes alongside you, picks you up, and says, "That's all right." Kind of using your metaphor, Bill. You're in Iowa, you know, but we're still heading the right direction. So let's keep going and be encouraging to them. And I think that was an important piece. Like I said, surrounding myself with the right people, that makes a difference. And so don't isolate yourself in the midst of your uh, limitations.
Yeah, good advice. And I think that once you know what you want, your heart and your mind have to be in it together. If
Yes,
your if your heart wants something and your mind say, "Oh no, that'll never work," then it'll never work. And if your mind wants something but your heart's not in it, you're not going to get it. Or if you do get it, you're going to be unhappy. So it's
excellent
really
point.
what Mike said earlier about going deep within and being aware, not only being aware of your habits and limitations, but being aware of what you truly want. What are you truly here for on this planet? What is your intention?
Yeah, for me, it always comes back to who am I and why am I here? And when you
Yeah,
figure those out, your life will change for the better.
And I don't think that's hidden from us. Why would a great God or whoever uh, create you with a purpose and then hide it from you? I think it's revealed from early on. And when you identify those threads in your life that have been there all along, you will start to see the picture very clearly.
Mhm.
yep. All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Good session. And this will close our second podcast on dealing with limitations and bad habits and moving toward what we truly want. Thank you, everyone.
Great to be with you.